think it's important to dive into a little bit of theory today, but also on your own time to understand the alternate shapes that I'm using when I wrote this book, and the alternate shapes I use very often when it comes to pop music, and by that I mean pop, rock, worship, folk, country, kind of the big five for me, basically modern music. And so a lot of times on these alternate shapes, you're going to see two things. You're going to either see a inversion or a portion of a standard shape chord, meaning I'm not adding any other notes to the chord. I'm just using the three notes that belong in either the major or the minor chord. So going back to music theory just for a second here, any chord, any major or minor chord, is going to be built up of only three notes. It's called a triad. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can read Music Theory for the Music Industry. It's really important to understand how a chord is built if you're going to modify it, which is what the right side of each of these chord diagrams is all about. It's about modifying a standard chord or a standard triad. So, let's take, for instance, a G chord. In a G chord, we have three notes going on. We have the G and the B and the D, and that's it. And those notes are repeated over and over again within that chord, or within this, I would call this a voicing, to make up that G major sound that you know and love so well. So on a standard position or a standard shape, I might say that's a standard shape of a G major chord. Well, an alternate shape of that chord could just be anything without adding notes, without making it a different chord, like a sus chord or a minor seventh or whatever it might be. It could just be a different arrangement of those G's, B's, and D's. If you're following me, that means that like I can play that, and that's a alternate shape of a G major chord because it still has the DNA of a major chord. It has the G's, the B's, and the D's that make it a G major chord. So an alternate shape that you've seen in the book so far is right here, where I take this shape and I say, well, I'm gonna invert it, or I'm not gonna invert it, but I'm gonna put the root note here, and I'm gonna build the G, B, D right there. So taking G's, B's, and D's and arranging them in any order that you want on the neck will give you an alternate shape of that major G chord, that standard shape, right? So that's how we get the first of all, get our alternate shapes is by inverting or grabbing portions of standard shapes. What do I mean by inverting? It means that I'm not using the G as the root note. I can use either the B or the D the lowest note of the chord. So an inversion of the G major chord would be like if I would start the chord with this. It's a much different sound than you get that B on in the bass, and it sounds different. Or you get the D in the bass. It's also an inversion of this G major chord. So making the lowest note a different note than just G. That's what an inversion means. And so on and so forth. So how did I arrive at the alternate shapes that you're looking at? Well, I kind of picked between a few of my favorites, and I used, and if you have a pen and paper right now, I used some of the same ones over and over again in different ways and in different shapes. So those would be the sus2 and the sus4 chord, which basically means that I'm replacing the third note of the chord. Oh, in this case, like if it's a G major chord, it's the 3 of the chord, the G, B, D. It would be replacing the 3 of the chord, the B, with either the 4th note of the scale or the 2nd note of the scale. So a 4 sus would be G, not B, but G, C, D. So G, C, that's a 4 sus chord right there. Or 4 sus chord, or sorry, a sus 4 chord. And that 4th suspension, the ear wants it to pull down to that 3. Right? That's the resolve. So 4 down to 3. And then the 2 sus is similar, but instead of the 3rd note of the scale, or the 3rd note of the chord, it's the 2nd note of the chord. So the 2nd note away from the root note is replacing the 3rd note. So G, we're going to add that note in. Right? That's a sus 2 right there. We're adding that 2 instead of the 3. We're taking out the 3 and we're adding the 2 instead. So this chord is a 2, 5, 1 pairing, and it wants to resolve down to the 1. So that's what a sus2 is and a sus4 is. Similarly, you can also have add 2s and add 4s, and what those are basically a 1, 3, 5 chord, but then also adding in the 4th. So we're not taking away the 3rd and replacing it with the 4th, we're adding the 4th along with the chord, or adding the 2nd along with the 1, 3, and 5. So for instance, like here's a G major chord, we have 1, 3, 5, and then I could add in the 2 right here. That would be an add 2 chord, not a sus 2 chord, because it's really 4 notes happening: G, B, G, A, B, and D. Another way to play that, opening up that A note right there. Other chords that we have going on is a lot of the times the minor chords become minor 7th chords. So a good example of that would be like a F sharp minor 7. You'll see this chord all throughout the books. Right there, sorry, that's right there. Beautiful way to play a minor 7th chord. Another way to play a minor 7th chord shape is easier way, a very jazz position. Or those two shapes, super common in guitar playing and shapes that you really want to learn. And then every once in a while we throw in like the occasional minor 11th or minor 9th or major 9th, just mixing it up and adding some spice to the book. So the chords that you need to study in order to be really good at completing the mission of knowing all your progressions and all the alternate ways of playing these progressions are going to be your sus2, your sus4, your add2, your add4, your minor 7ths, your minor 11ths, your major 7ths, and your major 9ths. Those chords, if you had a pencil, if not, rewrite and rewind and write those down. Those are the ones you want to go study the theory on, and so that when you encounter these chords in this book, you'll know exactly what you're playing and why you're playing them. Again, you can find all that info in Music Theory for the Music Industry. It explains this stuff in really good detail, but also really simply, so that even a dummy like me can understand it. It's a super short book, and it just kind of demystifies all of music theory and makes it approachable for modern music. So enjoy that, enjoy this book, use it like I said to use it, and you're going to love your guitar playing even more than you always have in the past. Enjoy. Don't ever hesitate to reach out to us if you ever have any questions. It's info@theguitarinstitute.co, and we love to help you. Our goal is to make sure you become a better guitarist, so please don't hesitate anytime you need anything. See you next time, and have a great day.